taking another life is a very serious thing, but in the context of a special forces guy, fighting the enemy, it's validating. You always wonder what it's like when you take a human life, and you wonder how you will be, will it change you? But the reality is that most soldiers don't buy into politics. I didn't care why we were there, what we were doing. My job was a soldier, and there were people, rightly or wrongly, we were in that country, and people decided to shoot at us, and happy to have us go home in body bags, so I was happy to do the same. Contrary to popular belief, in movies they have, Taliban, running it in the open with their guns at the waist in hordes, but the Taliban are humans too, and they also have a strong bias against being shot, so they don't traditionally run in the open towards gunfire. But my first impressions were just how little they carried. We're laden down with so much equipment. You see these guys in, essentially rags and an AK. They're a lot more manoeuvrable. They don't wear a uniform, they blend into the populace. We'd drive past and they'd wave at us, and as we get 500 metres away, they'd start shooting at us. So there was no identification. You literally had to wait until you were shot at to work out if they were bad guys or not, which is problematic. Flying at 3 in the morning into northern Kandahar, the pilot lost height awareness, and we crashed flying over 200 kilometres an hour in the deserts of northern Kandahar. We had 3 commandos killed and an American loadmaster that was killed. My recollections of that time are very, very vague and fleeting. Obviously, I had a lot of injuries, head trauma and so forth. But people have often sort of focused on us guys that were involved in the crash. But for me, the biggest insight and what I think people should focus on is the remarkable courage and bravery of the guys who landed in the 2nd and 3rd helicopter. These guys landed in enemy territory. The aircraft's on fire, bodies are ripped open, people are dying, there's bullets going off, the aircraft's still on fire, and these guys had to triage their mates. All I wanted was some confirmation that I had my job back. And as soon as I've got that confirmation, 2 years later, I went cold turkey on all my medications and haven't taken anything since. So, from my own experience, it's very easy to buy into this broken veteran narrative, but people talk about post-traumatic stress, but no one talks about post-traumatic growth. I think that has been to the detriment of veterans, because it undermines the utility that veterans can provide the workforce in their life post-service. Having bad things happen to you doesn't have to define you forever. That event has definitely shaped my life, but it's also enhanced my life too. It's taught me a lot of life lessons and forced me to have a level of introspection that wouldn't other happen if you didn't have these bad things happen to you.